Leading a startup team? Whether you're delivering a sugar rush, stocking coffee, or getting a regular delivery of snacks, Office Depot has solutions that fit every startup culture, from getting those first business cards and stationery to ordering fleece pullovers with your new logo. To learn how Office Depot and the California Technology Council have partnered to bring you savings on all of these startup essentials and more, go to californiatechnology.org/member benefits. I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report. Wall Street's attention will turn to Chicago as the annual meeting of the American Society of Clinical Oncology gets underway June 3rd to June 7th. Though this is a scientific conference, it's one closely watched by investors who have been poring through the abstracts that have been available and keeping an eye open for late breakers that could move stocks. We spoke to Jon Gardner, deputy news editor for EP Vantage, about the ASCO meeting, what the early abstracts say, and who will likely be making headlines at this year's meeting. Jon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on today.
ASCO 2016 kicks off in Chicago June 3rd. This is the annual oncology conference, but one that's perhaps more closely watched on Wall Street than in labs. How would you explain ASCO to someone who's never been there and its importance to investors?
The best way to describe it, I suppose, is as a scientific meeting that has massive investment implications. So many of the studies that are released at ASCO will have a massive impact on companies' sales and valuation going out, 5 years or 10 years. That one has to pay very close attention to the data, and not just the data, but how they oftentimes compare in the setting, first line, second line, third line, in specific cancer types, be they not just organ groups that are affected by cancers, but also within those cancer groups, various genetic mutations. So there are some very, very fine lines that one has to keep a close eye on, and investors, pay attention very closely to it. Go in very, very alert to the minute differences and how they will affect the evaluation of a share in a company going in the week that follows ASCO. That's why you oftentimes see some massive movements of $1 billion or more in even the largest companies, as well as the very small companies.
Several years ago, there was a notable shift at ASCO away from the big stories being emerging biotechs to big pharma. Is that the same case this year? Will big pharma dominate the news flow out of ASCO?
I think that's the case, and one of the reasons for that, I think there's a couple of things going on with ASCO right now. Of course, the pipeline is so very, very full with some rather promising projects that only really late-stage data can make it into a sort of a prominent position, a plenary session, or a spotlight session, or a late-breaking abstract session. And by the time products are in that phase 2, phase 3 product stage of development, if they have any promise at all, they've probably already been bought up by big pharma. That said, you will see some people who have found some very interesting niches, I think, in terms of the on the biotech side of things, who will also see some rather big share movements in the days following ASCO if they haven't already. The second thing I think that's going on this year is that a lot of the things that are being the really super early stage things that are being developed like right now, for example, the modified T cell therapies that are aimed to turn on the immune system in various ways to fight tumors are the ones that are in the hands of the biotechs still. And there's quite a lot of uncertainty about whether these can succeed either clinically or commercially.
These are the CAR T therapies from companies like Juno and Kite, or
exactly the CAR T therapies. They remain very much in the background at this point, and what we're seeing this year, actually, as far as my assessment of the data that's been revealed so far, is some very proven approaches, kinase inhibitors, advanced chemotherapies, antibodies, but not in that sort of immuno-oncology space that have dominated the headlines the last couple of years.
Well, certainly immunotherapies still seem to be a hot area of news this year. Bristol Myers Squibb's Opdivo and Merck's Keytruda are both already on the market and looking to target new cancers beyond their approved indications. These are both so-called PD-1 inhibitors. Are we expecting data that would speak to where we're going to see these expand their use?
That's very true. Some of the data that we've seen on Keytruda and Opdivo, I think, has been either hinted at pretty broadly, released at earlier conferences, and I think that there's sort of this recognition that all of these, Keytruda and Opdivo, and some of the ones that are still in that sort of very late stage of development, like Roche's atezolizumab, all kind of look the same, and all will probably be used in very similar, are able to be used in very similar settings. And I think what I'm waiting for, and I think a lot of the sector are waiting for in this immuno-oncology world, is our data coming in the next 6 months, year, 2 years, that reveal how they can be used in combinations with various other approaches to sort of take a double-barreled approach to fighting cancer.
Is that where their future lies, as combination therapies, do you think?
I do think so, because there are so many ways that tumors can evade standard therapies, as we well know. Standard therapies don't always succeed. Very often will fail after a certain amount of time, and because the tumor cells develop these evading, for lack of a better word, techniques. And when you can hit it twice, not only hit it with a chemotherapy, for example, or hit it with a vaccine, but also to suppress the tumor, and also use the body's immune system to attack, there may be more than just additive effects, and I think that there are so many studies underway right now using combination therapies, using an immuno-oncology agent and something else, that we're going to see some really, really interesting stuff. It's just not quite to the same level as that late stage, that phase 3 research that is going to be revealed at ASCO.
In breast cancer, Pfizer and Lilly are reporting data on CDK4/6 inhibitors. These are expected to get some attention. How promising an area is this, and how is that market shaping up for those drugs?
Well, of course, Ibrance, which is the Pfizer drug, is already on the market and has actually been a surprising success in its specific setting. Abemaciclib looks, the Lilly drug looks very similar, if not slightly better, And there was some hope that perhaps as a single agent, abemaciclib might have some promise, but it looks to be still a drug that will need to be used in combination.
So is there data you'll be watching for there?
Yes, I will be interested to see the full readout of the abemaciclib single agent study, just to see if it could in fact be used. If there is some way for it to be used as a monotherapy. It probably won't be the case, but it'd be interesting to watch.
Roche has a recently approved bladder cancer drug, Tecentriq. This is a PD-L1 inhibitor. How does this fit into the world of immunotherapies, and will there be data coming there?
Yes, there is. I'm not certain because the abstract, I think, is still under embargo. What the bladder cancer data will reveal. It does have a featured place in one of the main sessions. Much of this data has been disclosed already. I think they did at the European version of ASCO. They did a big reveal on it last year. But it's always interesting to watch sort of the long-term data on these drugs because of the promise of extending overall survival. And the longer follow-up you have, the better idea you have of just how good a drug and how well it will treat the patient group for which it's intended.
Bayer's anti-angiogenic Stivarga had encouraging results in liver cancer, but it's being developed in soft tissue sarcomas. These are rare cancers, but ones without available therapies. What's the significance of that, and what's the outlook?
Well, I think the significance of it, if a targeted therapy can be developed in soft tissue sarcoma, is that in fact it's probably, first of all, there's been so little research done in soft tissue sarcoma over the years. I think the treatments that do exist don't do very well, and I think they have rather significant side effects. So to come up with a targeted agent that can reduce the side effects and improve the survival will be a really, really big deal for this patient group.
Let me ask you about one more drug, AbbVie's Rova-T. This is a drug for small cell lung cancer that acquired through the acquisition of Stemcentrx, a potential blockbuster. What do we know here, and what are people watching to see?
This again was data that were revealed at the European Cancer Congress last September, and it frankly took me by surprise because, first of all, I'd never heard of this drug, and secondly, I'd never heard of the company Stemcentrx that got this big featured place on a major cancer congress. So small cell lung cancer, of course, the focus has been heavily on non-small cell lung cancer, and product, which is a antibody drug conjugate, if I'm remembering correctly, did have significant improvements over the standard of care. And I think to take a step back to the European conference, it was surprising to see this product that from a company that I don't think many people had heard of, and an approach that not too many people had heard about, having such a success. The data at that point were very compelling, but rather preliminary. I think what we will see at ASCO will be a more complete data set with longer follow-up, more patients, and will more or less affirm whether or not AbbVie made a good choice when they decided to acquire Stemcentrx. I think all the indications are that this is a good choice, but it will be interesting to see if everything we believe to be true about Rova-T turns out to be true.
A lot of abstracts have already been released, but there's often big news in the late breakers. Is there anything other than Rova-T to watch for with the late breakers?
I think there's some data on a product from Ganymede. I think I've pronounced it correctly. An anti-Claudin antibody, a mechanism that I don't know that I fully understand yet. It being a private company, of course, Ganymede Pharmaceuticals, that is, they're not obviously not obligated to disclose publicly what all their data, and it could be, as I mentioned, with Stemcentrx, at the European Cancer Congress last year, could be a similar situation to Rova-T, where the data look just so good that it instantly becomes a takeout target, and we'll be hearing about the next round of pharma oncology-based M&A based on what Ganymede reveals at ASCO.
Any predictions on winners or losers, either as individual companies or therapeutic categories this year?
Oh, that's always so difficult. ASCO is one of those conferences you can't go in making any assumptions. But I'm gonna go with a safe one and say that immuno-oncology, despite the fact that a lot of the news is being made by some of the older products, kinase inhibitors and antibodies, I'm going to go out on a limb and say immuno-oncology will still surprise, still show how its importance in the future of oncology. And I also will say that I will also make a prediction and say that there are some proven approaches, such as basic chemotherapies that have been used for years that still haven't been optimized. And we're going to find out some certain things about chemotherapy regimens and how they can be made better to improve oncology.
Jon Gardner, Deputy News Editor for EP Vantage. Jon, thanks as always.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send an email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.